8 is all about due process and the rights of the accused. So it details the rights that criminals have when they're in trial. Just like in the last video, we're going to be talking about due process, but we are also going to include the Fifth Amendment's due process clause. So the Fifth and 14th Amendment's due process clause declares that any law or any court decision to deprive a person of life, liberty, or property is based simply on their process of law to see if the law was justified and if the criminal was treated completely correctly. We have two types of due processes. First one is called procedural and the second one is called substantive. The procedural due process clause is about the material and the way that the law is carried out. Meanwhile, the substantive due process clause is based on how the essence or essentially the substance of the law is carried out, determining that if the law violates a basic right, such as life, liberty, or property. The due processes show us that there's something called the exclusionary rule included in the Fourth Amendment, which says that the government cannot search a person or arrest them without a search or an arrest warrant, which was included during the case of Weeks v. United States, where Weeks was a man who was arrested for mail fraud without an arrest warrant, and his house was searched without a search warrant. So the court concluded that that was unconstitutional. So they declared that whatever is searched inside of a person's house that is not included in the search warrant, or if they are arrested without an arrest warrant, would be considered illegal unless if it's done in the protection of public safety or in the eye of the officer. In one of our non-required cases called Map v. Ohio, we can see that the exclusionary rule is put into place when the Ohio Police Department searched Map's house for gambling things, but they instead found some obscene materials, which was not allowed and illegal in Ohio, and she was arrested. But the search warrant for her house did not include finding the obscene magazines, so the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that it was unconstitutional for a search warrant that did not contain those materials to be used to convict the same person. Also, we have the Gideon v. Wainwright, which is a required case. There's this guy named Gideon who's arrested and is not provided a lawyer to argue with against court, and the court proceeded with him not getting any counsel. So this case went up to the Supreme Court, and they decided that it was unconstitutional for the criminal to not be allowed counsel because it's incorporated in the Sixth Amendment. Another Supreme Court case that incorporates the rights of the accused is Miranda v. Arizona. It's not required, but Miranda v. Arizona was where Miranda was arrested and he was tortured to give information, but he was not told of his rights, that he does not need to reveal that information without his counsel or with the lawyer, or he doesn't have to reveal it in front of anybody. So that created a very big commotion, and the Supreme Court decided that yes, it was illegal to ask him and pressurize him and torture him to give information without telling him that he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. It's the police officer's duty to deem the person guilty by providing evidence, not the other way around. Resulted in the Miranda rights, which are still being read today, like you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to counsel, etc., etc. However, there is an exception to the Miranda rights, which is the public safety exception rule, which states that if there is a public safety, that means the officers do not need to read the Miranda rights for the criminal, or the person that they're arresting, because that is in the safety of the public, so it is not required that the criminals must be read their Miranda rights. They could be, however, read later, when the danger is cleared. And this marks the end of our video for 3.8. And I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe and wait for 3.9, where we will continue discussing our due process.